What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Joannis or Joe Hatagwa. I'm a Sierra Leonean American now living in Freetown, Sierra Leone. And if you want to know about the news happening in Sierra Leone and a little bit about what's happening around Africa, then this is the video for you. All right. We're a little bit late, but we are live, and we're live everywhere, literally everywhere. So we're live on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and TikTok. We're also live, I think, on LinkedIn as well. So, all right, if you guys can hear me, give me a thumbs up so I know you can hear me. And then also tell me where you're watching from. That's a new tradition we're starting every week now. I want to hear where you guys are from. So if you can hear me, give me a thumbs up and let me know where you're watching from. Today, we got news from Africa. We got news from Sierra Leone in particular. We got a lot to talk about today. So I see Destination Africa join on Instagram. What's up, guys? Greg is from LA. What's up? Shout out to LA. I lived in LA for 4 years. All right, David said you can hear me. You won your chance. I like the name. Florida. What's up from Florida? What part of Florida? I lived in Jacksonville for a while. Okay, we got okay. I think it's Ullman West Ullman, I guess your name, from Philly. Shout out to Philly. AGP Guerra says, love your content from Canada. Shout out to you. Thank you. Appreciate it. What part of Canada? Wow, we got Chase. Was it Chasman? Sorry, Chamson. Chamson is from Stockholm, Sweden. We got Stockholm, Sweden in the house. Okay. Prince Dan Juma is from the Philippines. We got okay, so we got a few other people's. Sengbe is saying what's up. Sengbe is here from South Carolina. Shout out to you, and you can hear me. Manelik is here. What's up? Good evening. Aisha Ladon is here. Said, yep, you can hear me. Aisha's in California. Robert Grissom said you can hear me. Cool. Anne-Marie Harding from London. Nice. We got 1 Million Millionaires is from Newark, New Jersey. I spent a lot of time in Newark. Christabel. Shout out to Christabel. What's up, Christabel? Long time no see and speak. Christabel is an aspiring content creator. She came early today, so she's not going to miss anything. And she's in from Manchester, formerly living in Sierra Leone for a little while. We didn't overlap in Sierra Leone, but we've got a chance to see each other over many different places, Ghana. And actually, we did spend New Year's one time together in Sierra Leone. She's part of the Party Starters crew. Okay, who else do we got? Did I say Robert Grissom's calling in from Indianapolis, Indiana? Cecilia from Italy. Nice. Christopher says, I know, right? I'm here on time today. All right, so who else we got? We got South Africa in the house. True Real Kapadi, I guess. Destination Africa, of course, from Ghana in the house. Accra to be exact, right? I would imagine you guys are still in the crowd. Confirm is from Nigeria, and I'm probably pronouncing your name wrong. Sorry. Confirm, maybe. Confirm. Donnell Green is from Georgia. We got True Real Kappa Diaz from Johannesburg, South Africa. What else we got? Who else we got? Okay. Mac Holloman from Austin, Texas. My sister used to live in Austin for a while. She went to UT Austin. Beverly Humphrey is from Texas. All right, cool. What do we got on TikTok? Anybody telling us where they're from on TikTok? You guys always join, but you never say if you can hear me with a thumbs up or where you're from. Can you guys on TikTok hear me and tell me where you guys are from? All right. Living Natural says they are watching from Texas. Cool. All right, we got a lot to go over today. I'm going to start with my introductions because there's a lot of new people here. So for those of you who know me, Just bear with me on the introductions a little bit, just to give people a little bit of an idea of who I am and where I'm from and what I do. And then we're going to get right into some news around the continent of Africa, and then specifically some major headlines from Sierra Leone, power outages, what happened and why, and some updates on the protests and the planned protests that were today. But let's see if there's a couple more people I can acknowledge that are here. Misty One says, your internet is crazy. Yes. Shout out to Sierra Leone. Sorry, guys. I literally today just re-upped on my internet plan with Africell, and it's supposed to be one of the best in the country. And unfortunately, it hasn't been working too well. So I apologize, guys. Take it up with Africell. Sorry. All right, cool. Who else do we got? We got anybody else that I haven't acknowledged yet? Where you're from? From Ro. Where's Ro? R-O. What's R-O? This is Christian UL. IYIN Borjo is from Georgia, GA. Shout out to you. Okay, cool. We got a full house. So let's get into the content today. So I think last week I was struggling a little bit. Unfortunately, I'm not able to talk about what it was that is going on, and that's maybe a conversation for a later day. We will at some point go over it, and I'll give you guys the details, but that's not going to be today. And it definitely was not going to be last week, Monday. I am in Bo right now, Bo City, Bo Town, depending on who you are and how you decide to describe it. That is one of the other major provinces in Sierra Leone. I always consider it like the second capital of Sierra Leone. It is where my paternal family side is from and resides. So I'm in my aunt's place right here in Bo. And so, yeah, let's get into it. But before we do, we got Hugo Morel says, from the NYC through African ancestry, I'm from the Timney people. What's up, future fellow countryman? What's up, Hugo? Nice. I look forward to hearing your story about getting your citizenship. All right, so my connection's been a little iffy and spotty. I apologize, guys. I'm using a MiFi, and the MiFi is what it is. I went today and got it. I re-upped today the 650 plan, which is supposed to be 6 megabytes per second, or Mbps. And so if it's not connecting, that's not on me, it's on them. So you guys got to take it up with the internet operator. All right, so a little bit about myself. For those of you who are joining that are new, some of you are new on YouTube, many of you are new on TikTok and on Instagram. My name is Joannis. Yes, I know, that's my name though. Joe. I also go by Joe, and my last name is Hatagwa. I was born and raised in the States, but my parents are Sierra Leonean, and I am a dual citizen between the United States and Sierra Leone. I lived in Ghana for 2 years before moving to Sierra Leone a little over 3 months ago, and I now run an advertising agency here in Sierra Leone, and I spend my time as an influencer. As a matter of fact, in a few weeks, I'll be traveling to Tanzania on a project to film my experience with the folks at Maximum Impact. Oh, man. Of course. By the way, I'm utilizing a generator. That generator should be able to power all of these devices. And of course, like clockwork, when I go live, something has to happen. I don't normally use generator, but this isn't my house. And so they use a generator here. Unfortunately, I cannot hear the generator. So that leads me to believe that the generator has run out of fuel, even though I bought enough fuel that should have lasted me until at least Wednesday. So this should be interesting. Let's see if I'm able to get light back and he can turn the generator back on. We have house help here who's supposed to be turning the generator on. These are exciting times here in Sierra Leone. You guys get a chance to watch me go live in the dark, I guess. And unfortunately, I don't have any other devices to give me extra light. So let me see if I can figure out a way to plug into my computer, the ring light, so at least there's a little bit more light for you guys to see me. Anita says, shout out Sierra Leone. Yes. Actually, I can't imagine that just like that. I think the generator just went off. I don't hear it at all. So, you gotta love it. You gotta love it. This is classic Sierra Leone. Okay, so anyway, as I was saying, Aisha says, "Mama Salon love." Yeah. Just interrupting the live, just right as I go live. Fine with power, leading up to the live for the last 2 hours, and then all of a sudden, boom, just like that. But anyway, we're gonna go on with the show. I'll be presenting what's on my screen anyway. By the way, those of you who are following on TikTok and on Instagram, the generator is back on again. And now we have lights. Yeah, okay. We're back. We're back, ladies and gentlemen. A brief intermission. But we're back with light. We're back with light. So I don't know what that was, but we're back. Okay, so I'm going to present my screen. For those of you who are watching on Instagram and on TikTok and you want to see what's on my screen, you can go to my profile. In my profile, there's a link that says, actually just a link on my profile, my link tree. You click on that link, that'll take you to a link tree with a bunch of links. The top link that says join me on YouTube live right now, just click on that link. That'll take you to the YouTube live so you can follow along, and your comments will more easily be seen. Because I'm presenting on a screen down here, this is probably where I'm going to spend most of my time, energy, and attention. So if you want to your comments to be seen and read on live, I recommend you go to the YouTube live and send your comments there. And also you'll be able to see what's on screen. All right, cool. So let's get into it. Knowledge seeker said, God said, let there be light. Sure. Or Muhammad, I mean, when you go turn on the generator, that too. All right. Okay. All right, so give me a second. Let me just pull up my screen here and present. It has been one of those weeks, trust me, not the ideal scenario by any means, but we're gonna get through this. Okay, so let me share my screen. Here we go. Give me a thumbs up so I know you guys can see my screen. Can you guys see it? Let me know if you guys can see it. And again, if you guys are watching on Instagram and YouTube, you guys are not going to be able to see the screen. Sorry, Instagram and TikTok. You're not going to be able to see the screen because I'm sharing it on YouTube Live, Facebook Live, and all the above. So we got some people in from Romania too. I'm going to wait till I see some thumbs up from the people on YouTube to know that you guys can see me. Wow. Christian is from Romania, if I can believe it. Well, I can believe it. Why not? I'd love to hear your thoughts on the Tates. We have Guy, who is from New Caledonia. Wow, I've never heard Caledonia before. That's a country I've never heard of. Wow. You guys always hit me with the new country. Tours by Innocent says, welcome to Tanzania. I'm looking forward to the trip. Absolutely. Coming soon. Destination Africa says, you're living it, bro. I am living it. It's going down with the lights. Okay. All right. So Sengbe and Anita both said you guys can see my screen. So we are ready to proceed with the presentation. All right, cool. All right, so upload date and times. This on pause a little bit. I usually upload on Sundays and Thursdays, and I go live on Mondays. That's generally the upload date and times. And I have other posts that go up in between. There's been a lot going on in the recent week, which I'll update you guys on later. So, or update all on later. And so we'll talk about that a little bit, and you guys will understand a little bit about what's been happening and why I haven't been posting. But you'll get more of that. But more posts to come. Trust me, it's happening. People on TikTok says you need a Zoom link. Okay, maybe a Zoom link at some point in time, I guess. Okay, so, but anyway, I go live once a week, every Monday, 9 p.m. GMT, 5 p.m. EST, 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Make sure you like, comment, share, subscribe, turn on post notifications so you guys are notified every time a new video comes out. And also, we want to share this with other people so we can help grow this audience so they can continue to get this kind of information, right? The goal from me is to share information with you all who are either planning to move to the continent of Africa, visit the continent of Africa, potentially even invest on the continent of Africa. That's the goal, is to give you guys the insight you might need to help you make those decisions. So I'll be traveling with folks who handle those kinds of things in other countries like Tanzania and in Kenya later this year. And I'll also be traveling to other places, which we'll talk about, especially for 2024. Ghana, I'm going back to Ghana a couple times this year. In the next couple of weeks, I'll be in Ghana. And then on my way back from Tanzania, I'll be in Ghana as well. So I'm just going to keep you guys posted on those trips, trying to go to Nigeria as well. But yeah, that's the goal, is to help you guys make that decision. So quickly, services. I have consulting services for moving and visiting Ghana. I'm not going to spend too much time on that. Same thing for Sierra Leone. If you want to visit Sierra Leone, move to Sierra Leone, buy land in Sierra Leone, I can help you do that. While I'm in Bo here, I finalized the process of buying the land in Sierra Leone. There was just a little bit left that had to be done. We got a lot of signatures. There was just two more signatures that were needed, and then we're good to go. Aisha Ladan has a great question, and I have an answer for you. So Aisha's question is, are you going to be at the Sierra Leone Business Investors event that Vicky Rameau is doing on October 7th? I will not be there. I will actually be in Tanzania at that point in time. It's in the DMV area. But I know it's going to be a great event. I'm going to try to watch some of it online from Tanzania, but I'll be busy filming on a work trip. Misty One says, do you plan on visiting Liberia? Yes, I do plan on visiting Liberia. Do you intend on visiting Liberia? Yes, eventually, sometime in the near future, but I don't know exactly when. But yeah, it's a drive away. Just one straight drive versus making a right, and instead of coming to Bo, I could have driven right into Liberia. So it's on the list of places to go for sure. I will be going to Liberia sometime in 2024. All right. So if you want to work with me on any consulting that I do, you can click on booking a private one-on-one 1 hour long session with me. You can find that in my link tree, whether you're on Instagram or TikTok. Here's what some people have said. I have some other testimonials that I'll be sharing soon. You got Aisha's testimonial, which she's on the live here. She's been commenting. She just asked if I was going to the Investing Summit. She shouted me out. And then Anita, who also has been commenting, also had great things to say about her consulting session. Social media consulting as well, I will do. So I can consult on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, and LinkedIn. As I mentioned, I've amassed a following across all platforms of over 180,000. And that is all due to strategies that I've employed and implemented through a long list of courses that I've taken, and just fully investing 100% of my energy and effort into doing this. That's what I do full time now. I started doing it in January, and we grew from Instagram from 50,000 to 132,000 as of this week. And that is all from January to September. So I most definitely can walk you through how I did that and help you guys grow your following if necessary, if you'd like to. So if you'd like to figure that out and find out how I do that, you can book some session with me here. Okay, so influencer services, I do content services, talent services. I can host a webinar, host a seminar, live seminar, panel moderator, keynote speaker, panelist, whatever you need me to do, I can do all of that. Content services, obviously, I can post for you on my page. I can help you create content. And then also in-person services. As I mentioned, I went to Gambia earlier this year, going to Tanzania in a couple weeks. And then further down the line, I will be going to Kenya. If you want to reach out to me for that, just email me at authenticafricanlife@gmail.com. Like I said, I'm going to Tanzania October 7th through the 16th. So I won't be at the investment conference in the DMV area. And I'm going with Jay Cameron and his crew. Here's where you can find information on that in my link tree. It's all there. I'm going to Kenya as well, and I'll be there from. Oops, sorry. This keyboard shortcut thing has gotten in the way. I'm going with Kia Waukesha Simmons and her team. I'm going from 28th of December through January 8th. All right, cool. So that's where you can find out. I do Instagram marketing as well. If you guys want to promote your products or businesses on my Instagram page, you can do that as well. All right. Now, let's get into the news because I spent a long time doing introductions. You guys all know who I am and what I do. Now let's get into the news. All right, so headline news from around the continent of Africa first. Sorry, guys. If you have no idea what's going through my mind right now and what's going on in life right now. So bear with me if I sometimes seem a little bit out of it. All right, cool. So I think the first thing I want to talk about is this earthquake in Morocco because it was a huge deal. And, you know, I don't know if the loss of life is described in the way that it should be when you consider how many people have lost their lives in this earthquake. You know, there have been devastating earthquakes in the States, you know, where a few people lose life, and it's something that, you know, it's on a constant news cycle. But there have been 2,000 people who have died in this deadly earthquake in Morocco. There's a lot of people in Marrakesh sleeping outdoors. But there's also been 2,400 at least that have been injured and at least 1,400 critically injured. So this happened last Friday in a magnitude 6.8 earthquake. And it was in the Moroccan High Atlas Mountains, southeast of Marrakesh. So it happened in the mountains, but it affected Marrakesh. So, of course, the NBC News mentioned that no Americans had been reported killed by the U.S. State Department, but there were a number of injured U.S. citizens. But they said that number was small. Pope Francis offered a prayer. A chef, Jose Andres, sent a food trucks from his nonprofit organization, World Central Kitchen, you know, set up in remote locations in Morocco hit hard by the quake to prepare food as needed. This is a really big deal. I mean, 2,000 people dead and 2,400 people injured. Man, you know, just think about how many lives are impacted by that, right? I can't even imagine, like, to see that kind of devastation. And you see the pictures here, like what it looks like. You know, people save up their whole lives to build a house, move to a country, move to a city, and just like that, it's all taken from you. So, you know, with a story like this and with stories like this moving forward, I'm always going to try to be a little bit more sensitive, especially to the loss of life, considering what I've been experiencing in the last 2 years. So I think it's important that I think when people report on these kinds of things, they're really sensitive to that topic, because I don't know if people really realize what people go through when they lose people like this. And so anyway, I wanted to mention this story because I don't know how much you guys were aware. This is a big deal right now. There's still talks about how you can support. You can just Google the Morocco earthquake. There are going to be plenty of stories and plenty of places that people are going to set up GoFundMes and things like that if you want to support people who are dealing with this tragic situation. But yeah, I just wanted to bring it to your all of your attention so you guys knew that this is happening. And this is a really big deal. I mean, 2,000 people. You know, this is like, that is a huge number of people. That is a lot of people. And another 2,400 who have been injured. And I don't know if the 1,400 are part of the 2,400 that have been injured, or if that's a separate critically injured number. Because if that's the case, we're talking about between loss of life and critically injured, we're talking about over 6,000 plus people, almost 7,000 people. So just, you know, take that all into perspective, how many people have been affected physically, and then the families of those people, how many of those people have been affected. So, you know, Jerry Campbell just stepped into the building. What's up, Jerry Campbell? Anthony Clemson says the buildings were not built to sustain an earthquake. Yeah, likely not. I don't know how often Morocco has earthquakes. And so, you know, there are a lot of places that aren't built to sustain it. I lived in Los Angeles, California for 4 years, and we had buildings that were structured with like hydraulics in them. Like when I worked at Hulu, one of the conference rooms had like these hydraulics set up in the conference room so that if the building was to shake, it could actually sway with the earthquake. It was incredible to see the way that they built those things into the buildings to ensure that they could withstand a certain level magnitude earthquake. But if it's not something that happens normally in your country or a specific city, you're not going to build buildings to endure that kind of earth-shattering movement. So yeah, heart goes out to all those people there that are dealing with this. So Anthony Clemenson says he sees why Ghana is building earthquake-resistant buildings, I guess in the country. I guess you mean in the capital. Makes sense. All right, so that's what's happening in Morocco. There is a video that I wanted to share with you guys so you can see what it looked like in real time at a wedding, because I just thought it might be interesting to see what people go through when something like this happens. It's not something you're used to. It's not graphic or anything. It just shows you how people had responded to this. And so this is from the BBC, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm going to share this video. Now I'm sharing this video hoping that it does not have any issues. Let's see what happens. So you can imagine what might have been going through their minds as this is happening, right? This is in the middle of a wedding. So this is something that BBC shared on their Instagram page, just to kind of give context to people as to what was happening at the time of. You can see what it looks like in real time, right? So they, in order to keep it from being graphic, they cut it off there. But if you guys want to know more about what's happening there, you can just, like I said, you can just do a quick Google and you can figure out, you get more details on how you can support and what actually happened. Let me see, is there any other questions or comments on this as we go along? A lot of people are joining from Instagram and YouTube, or Instagram and TikTok. If you guys want to follow along with what's on screen, head over to my profile and click on a link in my profile. When you're there, just click on the top link that says join me on YouTube Live right now. And that'll take you right over to the YouTube Live so you can see what's on screen and you can see what the comments are, what comments are being said. All right, cool. So I wanted to touch on that topic really quickly, because I think it's important, right? It's an important one that, so again, I just kind of went through the details, more than 2,000 dead, 2,100 people have been, 2,100 people have been killed. So it's really devastating, and it's a very sad story. So this was the moment that I just showed this video. Okay, so the next story is a story from Niger, which I think is interesting. So, I think we've talked about this a bit. A lot of people have been really excited about the coup that happened in Niger. And this is the latest, the second to last coup that's happened on the continent of Africa. It happened in July. And the junta that took over said that he's going to stay in office for 3 years before he steps out of office. A couple of things that came from that is ECOWAS set up standby troops with very little support from, in terms of Nigeria, they had very little support from the Senate. In Ghana, they had very little support from the ministers. And in other West African countries, they had very little support from the general populace and constituencies. Many people do not support sending troops to Niger to stop or to reinstate the former president. There are a lot of conversations about why, and we've talked about this on many lives before. But I think what I'll do today is just speak to this news story, which I thought was interesting. And if you want to know how the new government has been handling things in Niger, here's one example of one of the things that they reportedly have done that I think would probably be a little bit of a shock to many, but I think a relief to others, right? So the military government in Niger reportedly has corrected the price of uranium paid by France. So if you guys remember, we've talked about this previously. France was extracting $2 billion a year and giving $1 billion per year in aid. So extracting 2 billion, giving 1 billion in aid every year, right? And part of that was uranium. Part of that was other means that they've used to enrich themselves, and in turn has really affected negatively Niger. And part of the reason for overthrowing the former president was his close relationship to France and the West, and what many people believe to have been bad deals that former administrations and the current administration continue to have with the West and with France, that would continue to keep the country of Niger down, but would continue to enrich those in power. And so, again, I've always said I'm not the biggest fan of coups. I think I prefer there be a democratically elected president, but we also understand that in certain cases, it seems as though people feel like the last resort and the only resort is a coup. So with that, I want to get into the rest of the story. So according to a report published by The Spectacle in Niger, a prominent player in the global uranium market has made a daring decision and increased the price of uranium from 80 I guess it's like 80 pence. I don't know what you call anything less than a euro. If you guys know what the euro change is, because we would say cents in the United States, but this isn't cents, it's euros. So I don't know what less than a euro is, but it was less than a euro per kg of uranium. Now it's at the global price of 200 euros per kg. Now that's Niger is the world's 7th biggest producer of uranium and the 2nd largest supplier of natural uranium to the European Union in 2022. So the decision is expected to boost Niger's economy and the global uranium market. So now, look, if that is the case, that is a huge win for Niger, right? And that is a smart move for the country to make, considering the fact that we've all talked about how the continent of Africa needs to no longer be so dependent on the West, right? And we need to have a seat at the table. We need to be doing better business. And if this is the case, this is one step in that direction. France historically has been Niger's primary uranium buyer and bought uranium from Niger at a rate of less than a euro per kilogram. Now, ironically, on the other hand, France bought similar uranium from Canada at a price that's 200. So obviously that's the going rate, is 200 euros per kilogram. And so if this story is true, this is a big change. It's a game changer. It was virtually free. They were getting uranium virtually for free from Niger, and now they're paying the market rate. So we'll see how that story unfolds over time. But I wanted to play a video for you guys on this topic. Now, this is from an Instagram page that she actually did her little spin on it right beforehand. But I thought it was an interesting story. So let me quickly get you guys this video, and then I'll get to more of the story, because there's a little bit more that I can share with you guys on this. But I want to get to this video real quick and get this background. So let's see. Present my screen. Video file. Okay, let's go.
World market to 200 euros per kilogram. It was previously paying, or rather charging, 80 cents.
Okay,
the French were getting Niger's uranium for 80 cents per kilogram, and the world market price is 200 euros per kilogram, which is what little Macron will have to pay from now on. You see, it pays to stand up for your rights.
All right, there you go. So there's the story. I mean, basically everything I just said, but with their own spin on it. A couple other pieces of information and insight I want to share on this topic. Yes. So, so I already went through that, but there's some other details I wanted to share. Give me a second. Okay, so for more than 6 years, France basically paid 99.6% lower than the market price for over 60 years. So it's been alleged that the French companies that mine uranium in Niger do not pay taxes in Niger. So in other words, Niger did not earn from the sale of ore from the profits of the mining company. So they didn't pay taxes to Niger, these French mining companies, and France only paid 80 cents per kilogram. So as per estimates, France imported around 17,640 tons of uranium per year from Niger in the last 10 years alone. So paying 1 million euros per year when it should have paid 352.8 million euros per year. So another report claimed that France owes Niger about 351 million per year, or 3.5 million for uranium over the last 3.5 billion for uranium over the last 10 years. There's a general sentiment among Niger's intelligentsia that France should be demanded to compensate Niger for the balance. In a pattern of Germany being pressured to compensate Poland for the Nazi occupation. Interesting. So the experts term the increase of uranium per kilogram price as economic viability, fair market pricing, and potential chance for Niger to diversify its economic portfolio beyond uranium mining. So you guys might remember I talked about some of the if you guys saw my video that I did on this a while back for the African Diaspora News Channel. And I talked about the potential implications. If you want to see those videos, you can check out their channel for that. But, you know, one of the things we talked about was one of the things to do, especially now that they were going to lose some of the aid from France, was to diversify their businesses and their economic output. Little did I know, one option would have been to raise the price of uranium, because I did not know the price of uranium was 80 cents per kilogram that they were paying, as opposed to the 200 euros per kilogram. So obviously this is going to be untapped revenue from Niger immediately, depending on how Niger decides to continue to purchase uranium from, France decides to continue to purchase uranium from Niger. So one last fact that I want to mention is Niger is one of France's top 3 uranium suppliers over the last 10 years. The 88,200 tons of natural uranium imported into France came mainly from 3 countries: Kazakhstan, Niger, and Uzbekistan. And Niger is number 2 on that list. And so you can see here in the bottom right-hand corner where they're getting all their uranium from. So huge story coming out of Niger, and I think that is a big win for Niger, considering how people were trying to determine what the benefits of this coup would be, and if they were actually going to do anything significant as a military rule. And it seems as though they've made one significant major change, if the reports are true. So Anthony Clemenson is clapping for that. Let's see. Kwame is saying hi. I hope all is well with everyone else. What's up? Jerry saying hi to Kwame. Robert Grissom is saying, so where did the 80 cents per kilo go? I guess it went to the government of Niger. I think the point is it's 80 cents per kilo. And so the amount made, is, it's still 1,400,000 euros per year to the government of Niger. But that's in comparison to what they should have been paying, which was 352,800,000 to the country of Niger, right, for the uranium exports. And also, apparently, reports are saying that the French mining companies didn't pay taxes. So that probably will change now, I'm sure, under this junta. We'll see. But I'll be following the story closely, and I'll be sure to share that with you guys as well. So yeah, that was the other story I wanted to share from around the continent. Now we're going to get into the headline news in Sierra Leone. Two major stories I want to talk about today. Planned protest and the power outages. Now that we have new people joining, and many of you guys are interested in Sierra Leone and what's happening in Sierra Leone, and that's the country that I currently reside, I thought it makes sense to go over it. So Jerry Campbell's saying, I probably missed your coverage of it, but any color on the protest in Sierra Leone? I saw a clip of it and it looked a bit intense. So I've been following it closely. I've been in Bo, and most of it has been happening in Freetown. East End is what I'm hearing, maybe a little bit in Waterloo. But where I am currently is about 3 hours away. So I have not been around to hear what's been going on locally, but I've been getting some updates from friends of mine in terms of how they've been moving. In general, most people I know have moved to office, to the house, without any incident, but just struggled. Okay, but before we get into that, there's some more comments on the uranium story. So let's go back to that. Points. Did the 80 cents go into the bank account of the overthrown president? That's a good question. Maybe so. That's a good question, Robert. I don't know, but that's a possibility for sure. It's absolutely a possibility. Shout out to everyone joining on Instagram and TikTok. Razia Kamara, what's up? What's up? Who else do we got? A bunch of people join on Instagram, jumping in and out. All right, cool. So let's get into the Sierra Leone news, because I think this is a big one, and there's a couple things here. So as Jerry was asking about the protests in Sierra Leone, let's talk a little bit about it. So there were a couple stories over the weekend. There have been some rumors about a planned protest in Sierra Leone today, September 11th. And by the way, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge anyone who's lost anyone on September 11th, 2001. We are now, 22 years to the day since that tragic event happened. And so I do want to take a moment to acknowledge those who may have lost someone during that time. I actually had a family friend who was he was working at the Twin Towers, and he was late for work that day on his way to the office. He was literally working in the Twin Towers, and this happened at about 9:11 in the morning, and I think he was projected to be at the office about 9:20 or so. And so before he could even get there, all the commotion was happening and people were running, and so his life was spared that day. But there are others that weren't. So I do want to acknowledge that, because it is a day of remembrance for many people, especially for those of you in the U.S. And so I do want to make mention of that. It was my senior year in high school when it happened. So yes, that's how old I am. So I do remember it very clearly, watching it on the news. Like everything stopped, like the world stopped that day. And so yeah, I do want to acknowledge that, because it's September 11th. Sometimes when you're outside of the U.S., so you kind of forget some of these things. You forget American holidays. I didn't even realize it was Labor Day last week, or something like this that's so pivotal and such an important day to remember in the States. sometimes it can slip your mind. So as I mentioned, as I said September 11th out loud, I realized what today actually is. Okay, cool. So let's get into the headlines from Sierra Leone. So as I mentioned, there was planned protests and what some people are calling strikes. Now, these images are from the August 10th protest that saw 27 people lose their life last year in Sierra Leone. There were 21 civilians and 6 police officers who experienced loss of life during last year's protest. And so you can see these are some images from that. Now, this year, I would say anytime there have been some planned protests, they've been isolated to specific groups. But the larger population and the general public, I think, has done a pretty good job of trying to stay away from these events because, of course, we all know what happened last year. So I do want to just go through some of the news stories and some of the commentary that came out during this time. So on the 9th, which was Saturday or Friday, it's the 11th, 10th, 9th. So Saturday, the chief minister, David Senge, voiced concern over the planned protest. He called on the opposition leaders to publicly condemn these demonstrations. His message shared various social media platforms accompanied by a plea to leaders of the opposition party to take a stand against the protest. He wrote, "Is it too much to ask our friends who are leaders in the opposition to publicly condemn these so-called protests heavily linked to them? Couldn't they disassociate themselves publicly from these continuous calls of violence and instability? We have one alone and land we love." So the planned protests have raised concerns about potential political tensions and instability in Sierra Leone. His call for unity and peace reflects the government's commitment to maintaining stability and safeguarding the nation's interests. At least that is according to the SLPP government and their statements. I feel like there's a bit of a delay on the news stories, so I'm going to keep going, and then we'll go back to some of the comments on some of the other stories, just because we've now moved on to news stories. Actually, you know what? To give people a chance to type any comments or thoughts about this particular statement, let me just go to this last statement from Abdullah, who says, "How much is France paying for oil from Gabon and Spain paying from Equatorial Guinea?" It's a good question. I'd love to know the answer to that. That's something I'd love to do some research on. I think that if the case is similar, then there needs to be some major change there, period. End of sentence. I'll leave it at that. All right, so moving on. So that was the statement from SLPP and the chief minister, David Senge. There was a statement from APC, which is the opposing party, right? The All People's Congress. So this is the story as it goes from Sierra Leone. In light of growing rumors surrounding planned demonstrations scheduled for September 11th and 12th, 2023, the All People's Congress, the main opposition party in Sierra Leone, has issued an official statement urging its supporters and members to abstain from participating in these protests. The APC's press release addresses concerns of disgruntled Sierra Leoneans who are dissatisfied with the country's current state, particularly in the aftermath of the contested June 24th elections. Despite acknowledging the validity of these concerns, the APC explicitly clarifies that it has no looks like I'm back online on Instagram, and it looks like I'm back online on YouTube. Sorry, guys. We're back online. Apologies again. Don't blame me. Blame the internet provider. but I lost my connection like halfway through reading the statement. But I think the main thing is actually I was reading the story about the statement. Let me actually read the statement. I spoke to somebody about this earlier who's a supporter of the party in power. He seems to think that this letter was, I would say, not outright condemning. I mean, I'll let you guys like hear what it says and give me your thoughts, but at least the article was fair in saying that they felt like it was. So, and the article basically, the website, Sierra Leone, decided to kind of give both sides, which I think is important. You need to hear both sides of the argument, which is important. Fair and balanced. Isn't that what Fox News used to always say? Fair and balanced. All right. So public notice, planned September 11th demonstration. The attention of the leadership of the All People's Congress has been drawn to a planned demonstration on Monday, September 11th and Tuesday, September 12th by disgruntled Sierra Leoneans. I can't read that word, are clearly not happy with the state of affairs in the country, especially after the rigged June 24th elections. That's their words, not mine, just reading the statements. Whilst the concerns of the planners of the demonstration resonate with the APC, we would like to inform the public that the party is in no way involved in this planned demonstration slated for the aforementioned dates. We are calling on our supporters and members to refrain from any such demonstration and wants to hear from the party at the appropriate time. The APC has begun the process of dialogue with the government through credible international, I think, arbiters, and would not want to do anything that would undermine the process and put the party in a bad light. Let us allow the dialogue that has been initiated by the government of Sierra Leone to continue. In the interim, we call on Sierra Leoneans to keep the peace and not jump on the streets in the name of protest until we conclude the dialogue. So to me, I think it's a pretty specific statement that says not to protest. Now it's interesting because I hadn't read that just now. I had only read the article. And so it's interesting to hear how, to me, someone who is indifferent, all right, I can read that and it sounds like telling people not to do it. But someone who is a supporter of the opposite party heard that as an underlying take to the streets, which I did not hear. That's not what I read. So I think it's interesting, right? You know, when you have a particular lens in which you see things, you can see anything when you're reading a statement. And it was interesting that person told me explicitly that that this statement really was telling people to go out and protest, and it wasn't telling people not to. But as you read it, it seems pretty clear that they were telling people not to protest. So anyway, let me know what you guys think. I'd love to hear from you guys. But I'll move on to the next story. So the assistant police commissioner warned about the September 11th planned protest that was illegal. In a statement, he said, "We, the police, have not received any application for a demonstration as of yet, and all the news about it has been on social media." So to be clear, if you want to do a demonstration, you're supposed to submit an application and get an agreement from the police to do it. The assistant police commissioner furthered that the procedure for any demonstration is that the participants write the inspector general of police, who will either agree or disagree after weighing the odds. He said the police will implement a two-track approach, which is first to warn people not to participate in it, and then second is for the police to restore normalcy, which is to arrest anyone that come out to protest today. One of the functions of the police is to maintain law and order, and we cannot sit and watch the state plunge into disarray. At least that's how he described it. He added that there will be a collaboration with the security sector in order to maintain peace in the country. He also added that there are other plans to other plans that they're going to do, but they won't reveal it for security reasons. Meanwhile, on Saturday, armed police and military patrols were spotted in parts of the capital, Freetown. Sources have said that security forces will be deployed in strategic locations across the country on Sunday night. The government is urging locals to go about their normal business on Monday. Protests in Sierra Leone are rare, but often turn violent. August 10th of last year, as I mentioned, it says 25 people dead, but as far as I understand, it was 27 people who lost their lives, 21 civilians and 6 police officers. But this article is saying 25 people, but I'm pretty sure it's 27 based on all accounts. So, yeah, so that's what the police were saying. So Lenora says people hear what they want to hear. That's right. Christabel says fair enough, but no live bullets. Christabel says they could have used rubber bullets, and we'll get into that in a second because it seems as though there's some developments, some late developments that I've gotten. Chief Minister again on the 10th had some more statements. Says all public schools are open and in session. Tomorrow's not a holiday. All public services and institutions will be open. Tomorrow's not a holiday. Public transportation, including Okadas, Kekes, issued notice for full operation as citizens will show up. Peace will win, he stated. Now, let me tell you guys something. Well, let me go into the market women first, and then we'll go into what I heard about what was happening on the streets today. Just in terms of anecdotal insight from people like going to work and just going about their daily business. So on September 10th, they talked to some market women, at least Sierra Leone did. They said some market women in Freetown, others plan, and other parts of the country have decided to boycott a proposed protest slated for Monday, September 11th. So by boycotting the protest, technically you should be open for business, right? So on Monday, I have to open my shop and go to my normal business. I stay here and I'm the CEO of my business. I have no information on demonstration either from the radio stations or television. So I have to open my shop and go on my normal business. That's what one market woman said to Sierra Leone. She advised other business people to maintain their peace about normal business on Monday, Tuesday, adding that as several schools have reopened, the pupils need to go to school and be safe. She called on everyone to keep the peace and protect the image of the country. The unknown organizers of the protest said they'll be coming out on Monday to protest against the rising cost of living in the country, which has always been a piece of the protest as of recent. The recent protest is always about the rise of cost of living. So let me just read this last sentence here, or last sentence. Some commercial motorcyclists, taxi drivers, commercial tricycles, and other individuals in the sector have all pledged their commitment at different levels of engagement to go on their normal business and maintain the peace. So as of this morning, it was reported that the police activated a standby force. I will tell you, in Bo here, I was on the road and I saw a large military vehicle with many armed military officers. And I don't know what that was, but it was like a two-handed device. I don't know what it was, but you had to hold it with two hands and it was pointing outwards from the top above where you drive from. I don't know what it was. It could have been a bullhorn. It could have been some other kind of weapon I'm not familiar with. But it was interesting to see. And so I think it was a deterrent here. I mean, it was pretty peaceful here. I didn't hear much of anything, no protests, no nothing in Bo. Now, the standby force. So police in Sierra Leone have prepared its officers in readiness to be deployed in various parts of the country in the event that the protest that was planned was held as scheduled. Since last week, there have been rumors of protests and the rising cost of living, fuel prices, and discontent regarding the June 24th presidential elections. The strike was coordinated via viral messages shared on social media, especially on WhatsApp. So these messages were traced back to Adebayo, a Sierra Leonean living in Holland, and the head of the People's Power and Politics group. Now, this is someone I became familiar with when I reported on this story last year in August. I think I went live on the 12th, and the protest was on the 8th. So Adebayo is a gentleman living in Holland, and he has been credited with last year's protest. And apparently they are crediting him with the idea of this particular protest. Now, one of the conversations that come up a lot around this individual is people always forget I'm live on Mondays and call. Is the fact that other people who protested in dangerous situations protested with the people, not from afar. It looks like my Instagram live is going to end. So let me cut the Instagram live and start a new one. So give me a second, guys, to end the video, and I'm going to start a new one. Let me just do that real quick. Because unfortunately, this is one of those things that happens. Every time I go live now, I can only go live for an hour, which historically hadn't been an issue, but all of a sudden over the last 2 weeks, that has become an issue now. So just need to share, and then I'm going to go live once again really quickly. Okay, we are live. We're live. We're back live on Instagram. We're still live on TikTok. We're still live across all other platforms. So back to what I was saying. And so, by the way, if you're just joining on this live, or you're watching the replay, we are talking about news around the continent of Africa, but now we're specifically on news in Sierra Leone. We're talking about the planned protests today and the aftermath. And so one of the things we're talking about is this gentleman, Adebayo, and common sentiments that I've heard from people who have been a part of other protests, or who have, studied very closely the protests, the sit-ins, and the protests that happened in the 60s during the civil rights movement, and the idea that all of those folks, Martin Luther King and all the other folks that you can name, were there protesting along with the people who they were leading. They weren't doing it from afar, right? They weren't making announcements from somewhere else telling people to boycott and or protest in a certain place. And so I think that's one of the criticisms of Adebayo, is that he is leading protests from Holland. And what I hear is that putting other people in harm's way, right? Because all the people here are protesting knowing that there's a potential for loss of life, and he has the benefit of being far away and not being in danger. Now, some people have also said on the other side, well, he cannot organize anything if he experiences loss of life, right? And so that is one of the things that I think that is one of the arguments that are being made. Let me see what Anthony Clemenson is saying. This sounds familiar, like what goes on in Haiti. There's always someone overseas who's the head organizers for mass protests and riots. Yeah. I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think that someone like Adebayo should be organizing protests from Holland and out of harm's way? Do you think that he should be here and be a part of the protest and be a martyr and or arrested and speak his mind from here? What do you guys think? I'd love to hear from you guys, because as I talk to different people, there are many different people across the spectrum on their beliefs about this. I think my personal belief, to be frank, is I think that it's a very tough place to put people in if you're not willing to be in that place yourself. And I don't know all the details of the stories and the reasoning behind it, but to me, I think if you are going to protest something, you should be there with your people. That's just my general sentiment. No criticism, just saying that's my general sentiment. I believe that in the States as well. I hear a lot of people talk about protesting things, but they sit at home. You know, there are a lot of people on social media that tell people they should go out and protest, and they sat at home and did nothing during a lot of these protests. So and that's what I believe that across the board. This is not specific to Adebayo and what's happening with these particular protests, but I do believe that if you're leading a group of people, you should lead from within that group, and not from afar. That's my general sentiment. Highly Favored said, good evening from Brooklyn. Shout out to you. Jerry Campbell said, logistically, I can see the benefits of being offshore, but what kind of general puts his soldiers out to do things he himself is not? Yeah, that's something that I hear a lot, right? You know, that is something I hear a lot. And yeah, like you said, there's two sides to the argument, right? Like you could do things, you could do more from there, and you could do more alive than if you're not. So that is one of the sentiments I hear. But the other side, and I hear overwhelmingly the other side saying, you should be out there with your people. If your people are being put in harm's way and you're guiding people into harm's way, then you should be there. Because the thought process is, if you may better organize on the ground and ensure that things are done properly. Shout out to Traverse Culture. Hey, Traverse Culture team. I see you said, hey, what's up? Hope you guys can hear me on Instagram. So we're back live on Instagram again. So Anthony Clemenson says, I don't respect a leader who won't fight with his people in the trenches. You don't lead from afar. And Jerry is agreeing. Okay. What do the rest of you guys think? Do you guys agree or disagree with that sentiment? Lenora says, wherever you need to be most effective. It's one way to look at it. Now, and Lenora is saying this as someone who actually has been in the military. So I think that's an interesting viewpoint, knowing that this is someone who's actually been in the military. Because, you know, I'm speaking from someone who's a civilian who's never had to fight for a country at all. So, you know, that's kind of how I see it. I think generally, though, I kind of agree that you should be where your people are if you're putting people in harm's way. But that doesn't say that I don't understand tactically doing something from afar so that you can continue to have an impact for longer. So I don't know. It's you know, there's two ways to look at it. Okay, so now let's talk about the impact, right? Because as we said, Chief Minister mentioned today was not a holiday, right? People were expected to go to work. In fact, I have a friend who went to work today, told me it was really difficult to get keke or bikes because many people were not on the road. I think a lot of people are worried when they hear protests and they've seen what has happened previously when there's been loss of life. Many people just decide to stay home. So it's not as if they're in protest, in agreement with the protest, but I think they're just deciding to stay home and just ensure that they remain safe. And so that is what we saw today. But before I move on to that, Highly Favored did have a comment based on the previous slide. So one thing I don't understand is this guy's agenda. He's talking about Adebayo. You know, I'm sure he has a manifesto somewhere. Maybe at some point I can, I don't know, maybe I'll read it. I don't know if it makes sense for me to have him on a live. I'm a little nervous about doing that. But I do want to try to get in contact with him and maybe get a story from him and understand a little bit more about, you know, what he is all about, what he's focused on, what the plan is with his protest. If in fact this was his protest that he issued. So Anthony Clemenson is disagreeing with Lenora, saying she's speaking tactics, we speaking about sparking a revolution. So even if you die in the struggle, your idea or movement should not stop. Yeah, I mean, I hear you on that. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think it's easier. It's definitely easier said than done. But yeah, I'm still a bit critical though. I think I tend to lean on the side of, you know, run with your people if that's what you're gonna do. I'm not telling people to go out and protest because I'm not willing to go out and protest in Sierra Leone. Um, and Lenore has a good point. She said I might be targeted if I do an interview. Yeah, I don't think I want to do an interview. I think what I want to do is probably just find out what his plan is, what he's trying to do, and see if it makes any sense. And share that with folks because people are always concerned and trying to figure out what's going on, and why he does this. Fala bueno, come with him, okay. Okay, so let me just read what it says here. So the article says Freetown witnessed an uncharacteristic silence on Monday morning as numerous businesses ranging from schools and markets to banks chose to remain closed. This move, presumably in anticipation of possible unrest, came in response to a two-day planned protest on the 11th and 12th of September 2023. According to observations from Sierra Loaded, and they actually went live. So Sierra Loaded went live, went to a school today. I was going to put up a slide on that, but it was hard to kind of keep up with it. But basically, the class was empty. I have a friend whose daughter was supposed to start class today, and the school called and said, no school today. So according to observations from Sierra Loaded, the usually bustling streets of Freetown showcased an eerie emptiness. Only a handful of residents ventured out, and just a few vehicles navigated the city roads. Major commercial entities, including Rokel Commercial Bank, Orange, and Africell, located in the central business district, kept their shutters down. When our reporters, this is Sierra Loaded's reporters, visited the senior secondary school adjacent to whatever street that is, there was only 1% of the school's pupil present in class. Freetown streets are not totally devoid of activity, though. A significant deployment of security forces encompassing both the police and military is noticeable, indicating the government's commitment to maintain peace and order. Okay, so let's go back to some of the comments and thoughts here. So Jerry Campbell said, yeah, man, there's something to be said for having the courage of your convictions. And what this is back to the Adebayo statement that we're talking about, right? Him mentioning that people should protest, but not being there with his people to protest with them. Highly Favored says, for crying out loud, this country is too small for all this stress. I don't disagree. But I think, you know, it's par for the course. If you live in the country, this is just how you live. It's just normal. It just becomes normalized. You know, most of the people I've talked to in my friend group were not fearful of their lives or for their lives or anything. They just decided to stay home. A lot of people did a work from home day today. You know, just made sure they had internet at home and work from home. I happen to be in the outer province, so I'm all the way in Bo right now, so I couldn't really see what it was like in real time, but I would have also stayed home today, considering what I heard previously with gunshots and whatnot last time there was a major protest. So let's move on to the update. Sierra Loaded, and I will say this about newspapers, or not newspapers, but news here in Sierra Leone. They have no fear of putting dead bodies. Oh, I shouldn't have said that. Unalive bodies on camera. It was brutal. And so this man reportedly shot in Kissy Street in Freetown. Eyewitness claimed that the man was a businessman who was at his stall when armed military and police stormed the community and unalived him. The man has been identified as Mr. Calone, a disabled top-up seller. Now, that's how he was identified. That is the story as it was reported. There are no other sources that I saw that corroborated this particular story, but that is reported by Sierra Loaded, who, as I mentioned before, seem to be pretty fair and balanced. So, yeah. So Anthony Clemens said, politics in Africa and the Caribbean can be draining if you're invested in it. Okay. Africa emerged, said, as Sierra Leoneans, when are we going to learn? Lenora says they do that on CNN now. They show unalive bodies on CNN. Got it. Okay. Anthony Clemens says they don't blur the images of those who've lost their lives in their newspapers. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that image was gruesome. I'm not going to share it with you all here. Also, don't want to get another YouTube strike. I'm already dealing with YouTube unmonetizing my channel, so I'm trying to stay in their good graces and keep with their rules and regulations. But yeah, there was a person who experienced loss of life today, and I think it's very unfortunate and sad because it seems like every time there's a situation like this, at least one person experiences loss of life. You know, it happened the other time at the APC offices. You know, it happened another time. It happened last year with 26 people. It just seems like this is a common occurrence, and it is really unfortunate and sad. So, yeah, I'm gonna give you guys some time to leave your comments if you have any comments and thoughts on this. I'd love to hear from more of you if you have anything else you'd like to say. But it is a really sad turn of events today where we saw somebody experience a loss of life, considering, you know, from the accounts in this story, he was just at his stall working, you know, and he was a disabled person, at least according to this story, which really leads you to wonder what happened, right? Like what exactly happened in this circumstance. Okay. Now we're going to talk about the major power outages in this country. We're going to talk about that in a second, but I want to see if there's anything else that people want to talk about in terms of the story about the planned protest. I want to give people a second to comment because I know there's a little bit of a delay. It seems like almost a 30-second delay or longer. So if anybody has any comments they want to share, I will be more than happy to get to your comments. Just give me a moment. I'm just watching along to see if there's anything. So Mavo on TikTok was asking us to tell about the protest today. Hopefully that was a good enough overview and you've been able to hear what happened with the protests today. Let's see, anybody on Instagram have any questions or comments? Nobody on YouTube. All right, so let's talk about the major power outages in Sierra Leone. So about 2 days ago, and the part of town that I live in is a part of town that is it's in town where I am currently. It's in the city center, and so generally it's expected that at least during the weekdays they have pretty good power. Okay, before we move on though, there was one more comment from Jerry Campbell. Sorry. Interested to hear what's your read on the situation. Do you think it's indicative of deeper unrest? The protest. I don't know if it's indicative of deeper unrest because at the end of the day, it wasn't a big protest, right? No, we're not a very large country, right? We're a country of a maximum of 8 million people or so, and so you can't expect that the protests are going to be 200,000 people large, but I think there is unrest, right? I think there's unrest around the continent of Africa. There's unrest around the world, right? Inflation is a challenge. Unfortunately, not much is manufactured in the country of Sierra Leone, so a lot of things are imported. So you have the issue with inflation. You have high costs of just goods and services because many things are inflated. And then you also have the issue of the devaluing of the leone, right? Our currency devalues. So when you have those three things, that does lead to unrest. Now, some of those are market conditions that have nothing to do with who's in office, right? Some things just happen. Now, some people disagree or agree with the way different administrations handle these things and the things that they put in place to be able to handle them. You know, sometimes you put in subsidies on different products that are being produced. That's one thing that people do, to keep oil prices down or to keep down the prices of different imports. Other countries just do nothing. Other countries print money, right? There are just many different things that countries can do. but I think that, you know, some things are just inevitable. And, you know, with the cost of goods that have to be imported, and with the rising prices all around the world, it's very hard to think that anyone in this administration could do, with the flick of a switch, change everything. So, you know, that's not saying that there can't be more that can be done. I just don't know what could be done, what the answer is. And I don't know who has the answer, right? I just know that there are a lot of people complaining, and it's fair. It's a fair assessment of the world as it is today. It's just very difficult to determine what the options are, right? A lot of people like to complain, but not a lot of people have solutions. And so to me, I think the best way I can describe this is, yes, there's political unrest. Is it large enough to expect to see what we've seen in some of the other countries? I doubt it, but I do not have a crystal ball. I cannot predict the future, and I don't know enough about what's happening in the heads of those who could potentially do something like that. I hope that it doesn't happen, but to be honest with you, it doesn't seem, from the people that I talk to in general, that there is any fear of that. And so I think people more just fear, like, if there's a protest, that something can happen to them, so they kind of just stay away. Hope that answers your question. Try to be as neutral as possible, and speak about things with my own belief systems, while still trying to maintain my livelihood. So, you know, that's why I speak about things the way I do. Hopefully that answers your question, Jerry. Okay. Any other questions or comments on that topic before we move on? So I started to move on, and then I saw some questions coming in. Regina says, keep it updated. I will keep updating everyone as I get more information, of course, always. Jerry Campbell said, understood. And I don't like what's happening all over the world, particularly on the continent. It does answer my question. Thank you, Joe. You're welcome. Yeah, I mean, there's issues everywhere, right? You know, when you have inflation, when you have wages not moving at the rate of inflation, you have really serious issues. And this is happening in the United States, right? The minimum wage is going up in some places, but it's not raising at the rate of inflation, right? So, you know, you make less than what you did before, because the rate of the goods and services that you are purchasing are more expensive. So how are you making the same amount of money, but actually making less because your money doesn't go as far? Jerry Campbell says, substantive as always. Thank you. I try to be. I try as much as I can be to be as substantive as possible. So major power outages in Sierra Leone. Let's talk about it. So again, where I stayed, you guys might remember, I kept doing those videos about disasters in Freetown, right? It was a disaster. Kept having power outages, didn't have backup, didn't have solar, didn't have generator. And we were seeing power outages for 8 hours at a time. And that is largely because it was dry season. And in the dry season, you don't have as much of the hydropower that goes to those boats that can help power Freetown, and the dams and everything that help power Freetown. Now I'll get to that in a second. But because this is rainy season, most people during rainy season will say you're going to expect to have more light during rainy season. And so that was the expectation. And about 2 days ago, we started experiencing some major power outages. And I was questioning, like, what's going on? What's happening here? And, you know, and it was in many different parts of Freetown. So, like, I would talk to people that I know. I'm like, do you guys have light? We don't get light, so lights don't go. So we're trying to figure out, okay, so what happened? You don't have light. We don't have light, especially somewhere I know that almost always has light, because they're near a transformer, and not too far from political representative, right? And so the assumption is if they don't have light, something must be up, especially because they were experiencing power outages frequently as we were. So let's get into what caused the blackouts, because I think it's interesting. And I don't know if you guys knew about this, but I'm going to share because I learned a lot in the last 48 hours. And shout out to Isaac for putting me onto this news article. So Al Jazeera reported, actually. So this is not from anyone within country. This is outside the country. So Al Jazeera reported on this story. So power cuts to Sierra Leone as Turkey operator cuts supply over unpaid debt. So this is what it was looking like in many parts of Sierra Leone the last couple of days. You see lights in some people's generators in their houses, but barely light. It's dark. It's dark. So the Turkish operator Car Power is one of 3 sources of electricity in Sierra Leone's capital city. Sierra Leone's capital city, Freetown, has been hit by power cuts, its energy minister said on Friday after Turkey's Car Power ship switched off electricity supply due to an unpaid debt of around $40 million. That is not a small amount. $40 million is what is due. Now, Minister Cisse said to Reuters, a news agency, that the outstanding amount was accrued over time because the government subsidizes more than half the cost the ship charges per kilowatt hour. So remember, we talked about government subsidies to help with different things. At least the explanation here is that they subsidize the cost, meaning they're not generating revenue for the expenses occurred for the power that is being given to Sierra Leone by the Turkish power ship company. He said the government had to spend more on the subsidy because it charges consumers in the weak local Leone currency, one of the worst performing against the dollar, which is how it pays the power provider. So, to make sure that this makes sense for you all, the Leone last year dropped in its value basically in half, right? Now, the Sierra Leone government pays the Turkish company in dollars, but collects its revenue from Sierra Leonean citizens in leones. And if leones have dropped in value, even if you were collecting the same amount of revenue year over year in leones, the value is basically cut in half. So the same amount of money collected actually ended up being half what was paid to this Turkish car power ship. Does that make sense to everybody? Let me know if that makes sense. Let me know if that makes sense to you guys, because I hope it helps to understand. Op-ed said, Jerry Campbell says, debasement of currency. Op-ed says Sierra Leone is desperately poor, even by African standards. Hang tough, man. Okay. Highly favored said, wait a minute, what are you saying? Okay. Op-ed said, government should not subsidize. The country is too poor. African countries need to grow through market economy before it can even think about socialism. Okay, I don't know if this is socialism, but and I do think you should subsidize, because you have to think about it, right? The average income here is about $50 a month. And so if that's the average income, that's not enough to be able to cover the costs of really any significant electricity bill. And you might need electricity just for the basics, right? To study, to do any of the basic things you need to do. So I do disagree with that. I'm sorry, Op-ed. I think you do need to subsidize. I think you just need to find other sources of income. So a government commission has been set up to review the consumer electricity tariffs, which could double. Car Power Ship, one of the world's largest operators of floating power plants, and part of the Caradenas Energy Group, I don't know how to pronounce that, signed deals in 2018 and 2020 to provide electricity to Sierra Leone State Power Utility. The company has made similar deals with several African countries struggling with electricity supply. Yes, I've seen this actually when we were in Gambia on our way to Kunta Kinte Island. We were taking a ferry out there, and you could see the Car Power ship, the exact same ship. And so they were also helping to power the Gambia. Okay, so what else is the article saying? So Car Power ship has yet to comment on the development, so they haven't said anything as of yet. The company says on its website that it deployed around 65 megawatt power generation capacity to Sierra Leone since 2020, and has been supplying 80% of its total electricity needs. So if it's been supplying 80% of the total electricity needs, you can imagine what it's been like the last couple of days when the power's been out. Everything I have is in the freezer. As you can imagine, I don't have anything in the fridge anymore in where I'm staying in Freetown, because the freezer is the only thing that's going to keep things cool enough. Even if it starts to thaw out, it'll keep it cool enough at like almost like refrigerator like temperatures. The company, okay, so Sise said that the switch off by Car Powership had reduced electricity supply to the capital by 13%. Electricity is now being rationed in the capital, with homes and businesses are going without electricity for hours daily. I can tell you that has happened to me. Hours daily is no joke. Hours, sometimes twice or three times within a 24-hour period. Cisse said car power supply is mostly needed during the dry season when water levels at its dam are low. Dependence on the firm is reduced during the rainy season. The country is currently at the peak of its May to November rainy season. So that's according to Al Jazeera. Let's see what some people have to say. So Aped said, highly favored. My statement is based on GDP per capita from the World Bank. Anthony Clemenson says, with all these minerals in the country, what is the Leone backed by? It's a great question. I don't know. Lenore's giving me a thumbs up. Aped says, right, but you need dollars to pay for energy. So where will you get the dollars from? In the interim, people that can afford for energy should pay for it. Everyone else, tough luck. You can't say tough luck, because, for instance, school, right? If you say tough luck, then the challenges that we already have with studying and education gets even further exacerbated by less access to power, right? And so all the things that you're looking to solve will be further exacerbated by a group of folks that are going to be less likely to climb the socioeconomic ladder, right? So I disagree with you on that. I can't agree with the tough luck idea. I think there should just be more creative ideas to ensure that this stuff gets paid. I think Clement says the car power ship supplies the Gambia, Senegal, Guinea, and Sierra Leone. There you go. Apet says the foreign reserves of Sierra Leone amounts to 624 million, so Leone is not backed up by much. Jerry Campbell says, what you said makes perfect sense, but the continent's public debt in US dollars makes 0 sense for Africans. I agree. It's a rigged system. That's what you're saying. Yeah, I don't think it makes sense to have this much debt. I agree with that sentiment totally. I 100% agree with that sentiment. I didn't realize, but we've now been live for an hour and 33 minutes. Wow, it's been a lively discussion so far. And this was the last story I wanted to talk about. Unrelated to this in particular, I just saw this story and I wanted to mention it from Sierra Loaded. I thought it was interesting. Randomly, if power was not already an issue, there were some EDSA workers caught destroying electricity cables in Bo, the area where I am, which can answer some of the challenges that we're dealing with electricity. So some alleged workers of the Electricity Distribution and Supply Authority, EDSA, have been caught destroying electricity cables in Bo. The incident is said to have occurred in Sierra Leone's second city, Bo. I always say it's like the second capital, where a group of men dressed in EDSA working gear were spotted removing cables from a particular site. Locals in the area said that they were disturbed by the incident. SL News blog said police have arrested one man suspected of being among the group and is currently helping with investigation. Meanwhile, one eyewitness disclosed that a team came well-dressed in their EDSA uniform and vehicle. One of them had climbed the pole, cutting the cables. A statement that was, this is what the statement says. We were not able to understand their operations as we are not electronically inclined and thought they were trying to fix the light or other connections for us. We watched them for a moment, cutting cables and packing them into a vehicle, and a woman alerted the police to their intervention, and the police arrived. When the police arrived, they ran away. Once the police arrived, they ran away, he said. They claimed that the process started from 5 p.m. with some guys dressed in their official ETSA uniform and started cutting the cable. The spokesperson from ETSA maintained that they have to follow up with the case to ascertain that these were workers of the authority. He claimed that they were replacing the copper with aluminum, which they have to investigate more to know who sent them and what the reason was for. Okay. Okay, so a couple of other things. Anthony Clemenson says, I'm wondering if Sierra Leone is still under certain sanctions by the West. I'm not sure any sanctions have been implemented as of yet. There's been talks, but I don't think they've actually been sanctioned. They haven't been sanctions yet. So Aped says, you guys are supporting ideas that are incompatible. Sierra Leone needs external debt to fund subsidies for power, for example, as it doesn't generate enough revenue through taxes, trade, etc. Okay. I don't know what is that in response to. I think we all agree that they shouldn't need it, but they still do need it. I think we all agree to that, right? And we all agree, I agree, I think that there should be subsidies for power, for sure, because of the income in the country. So not sure what ideas are incompatible that you're speaking of, but definitely be more specific to what you're specifically addressing or talking to. I'm more than happy to talk about that. Okay, so this is the portion of the live where we go into the Ask Me Anything. I think we've talked enough about what's been going on. We can move to the Ask Me Anything section of this live. So if you guys have any questions or anything else you want to ask me or any other thoughts on this, more than happy to talk about it. So Aped says, disagree. It's simple math. They need to fund deficits. Disagree with what in particular? Because, I've been talking a lot and I've been reading a lot of comments or questions. So I think if there is a debate, I'd love to see like specifics to what is disagreed with so that we can hear what you're specifically speaking to. And then maybe we can talk about it back and forth. More than happy to, though. But any other questions, comments, thoughts? Jerry Campbell has something. Let's see what you're saying. The price would have to collapse, but there's a need for Tesla type power walls, solar and batteries to power the home and grid. Yes, agreed. But yes, the price would have to come way down for it to be affordable here. There are some solar companies here, though, that are making headway and getting some real market penetration. One of which I interviewed recently, which will be coming out in a few, maybe about a month or so, a little over a month, maybe more than that. But there's more to come on that. More to come on that for sure. Lenora says great content as always. Thank you, Lenora. I really appreciate it. Anthony Clemens says, okay, on the lighter note, will you be at the Afro-Caribbean Festival this December? I can't remember what dates the Afro-Caribbean Festival are again, but I may actually be missing it this year. Unfortunately, I might be missing it because if it is any time around the time it was last year, it went from late December into the new year. And I will be in Kenya from December 28th to January 8th. So unfortunately, I will probably be missing that particular event. So yeah. All right. I think we're going to have to bring this thing to an end because I do not know where my driver is with the vehicle. He's probably out joyriding right now, pretending to be fixing it, which I know it's not because it's past 10 o'clock. Mr. Truth says, thanks for the updates. Anthony Clemenson says the event is from the 28th through 2nd of January. So yes, I'll definitely be missing it, unfortunately. Aped said, I'm disagreeing with the notion that debt is not needed. The economy and the government cannot pay for power as we are seeing, so it needs to borrow to be able to do so. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, I don't think we're saying debt is not needed. I think we're saying we don't want there to be debt. It's obvious that debt's needed, right? Because they don't have the revenue to generate. I think we're all in agreement of that. I think what we're saying is that we wish they didn't need the debt. We're wishing that they didn't have to borrow money from other folks. So I don't think we're in agreement on that. I think you're disagreeing at a point that was not made. I think everybody was saying that they shouldn't have to borrow money, but we all understand that they have to borrow money, right? Jerry Campbell says, "Where's the Afro-Caribbean Festival?" So it is in Freetown, and this guy Donna, who I interviewed last year, and that interview is coming at some point in time, and the vlog that went along with it is going to be interesting. You guys have to check that out. It was an interesting time, to say the least, and he's bringing it back this year, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it goes. Aped says, "Thanks, nice discussion." Absolutely. Yeah, so all right, guys, we're now an hour and 40 minutes in. I didn't realize we went this long. I want to thank you all for joining, and those of you who joined a little bit late and you guys want to know everything we talked about today, go back and watch the replay all over again. Also, share this with people who you know are in the diaspora that want to know more about, or even on the continent of Africa, want to know more about what's happening here in Sierra Leone and what's happening on the continent of Africa. These will be weekly-ish discussions where I'll go over the news if there aren't any other topics that are more pressing. So just stay tuned. Every Monday, 9 p.m. GMT, we will go live either with a guest or without a guest to talk about things such as we talked about today. So with that, guys, thanks for watching. As always, I will see you all on the next video.